Right, gentlemen, round the corner here. Down from the Tabletop in the Hakataramea account of Mrs. Betsy McKenzie, we've got 120 of our weather hoggets there. As you can see, they're early shorn, ton of wool on them, good shifting hoggets, and the money there. Who's got what to kick me out? $9.50 there, $9.50 or $9 and go on them. $9 do I hear? $8.90 bid, $8.99 may I? $9 bid, 10 shoe, 10, $9 10, $9.10, quick, how much time? 20, $9.20 bid, $9.20, $9.20 waiting. We sell these, Mrs. McKenzie. They're here to go. $9.20 done, quick. $9.20 there, thank you.
Radio South Canterbury, it's 8:25. Southwesterly winds fresh at first near the coast, but otherwise light, turning easterly later and partly cloudy. Showers near the coast dying out during the day. In Timor at the moment we have a temperature of 12 degrees and it's partly cloudy. 3ZC.
About 5 years ago, when Betty McKenzie's husband died, she suddenly found herself with a young family to bring up and a farm in the Hakataramea Valley to manage on her own. She claims that her training as a dental nurse and a short while working in a bank didn't exactly equip her to manage a 5,000-acre sheep run, but this was what she decided she was going to do. She didn't find it easy.
When I suddenly found overnight that the lawyer said to me, well, your category's not a housewife, it's a sheep farmer. And I felt, well, I can't say I'm a sheep farmer if I'm not doing what a sheep farmer should be. I was fully occupied with 4 fairly young children, and they were all at primary school when my husband died. And I hadn't ever been to sale yards, cattle sales, or any of the things that I now seem to have to do. I suppose that my husband and I had hoped that one of the 3 boys would be interested in carrying on, and the fact that the family had been here for a good many years, and although people say farming shouldn't be a sentimental business, I think it's rather pleasant to think that it's a way of life that would continue on in the family.
Sorry, I had no trouble with the pump there, I couldn't get it going.
We always had someone working for us, and at the time Brian first came, he'd been harvesting in this district, and he came to help us out with shearing, and he has stayed on. Brian and I have to work in together pretty well. If we need new equipment, we go into the pros and cons financially and the fact of whether it's replacing an older type implement or tractor. But seeing Brian's more geared for that type of decision, it's largely over to him, but I'd have the final say as to whether we could afford it.
Possibly about 12 hours, something like that, I suppose.
I've managed to carry along for 5 years, mainly due, I think, because Brian stuck with me, and we were both more or less learning together, which was a help. If we're out in the Toyota, I'm generally looking at the growth to see how the clover's coming away, or if there's any response to the top dressing, or whether the cows are in good nick, and to see how the lambs are. The first year after my husband died, we'd had a terrible drought and we had very little hay. We've got about 100 acres of lucerne, and our total hay production for that year was 40 bales. And several of my neighbours have lucerne where the roots go to the river, to water level, where we've got all dry land farming, and they were able to help us. We have the terrible threat of Nacella tussock, and this is a very depressing thought because it lowers the value of the land. And I've been very concerned about farm valuations going so very high, and the fact that it's terribly hard to keep up with the price increases that we're having so constantly.
I think we'll put it down that ridge there somewhere, and we can have this top half then as a sort of a cattle block, wouldn't we?
Yes.
I mean, there's a fair bit of tussocks over here, so if we could get that,
Get it grazed back a bit.
back would save using so much of that bottom block, really. The other fence coming down the hill is quite good, so if we just join up with that one,
Up all right.
it should match up quite well, really.
Betty McKenzie's father was a stock buyer, and she was used to a lot of farming talk in the home when she was a girl. She's able to draw on this part of her background now whenever she wants to sell some sheep. If there are some options, such as sending them by pull or selling on schedule, or even just when to sell them and where, she can recall the way her father discussed the same sort of variables and the way he came to a decision. Betty McKenzie picked up her farming knowledge in a hurry and worries sometimes about what she calls her lack of intuition. She forces herself to make decisions, but having made them, she sticks with them. Although she depends on the farm advisor and on one of the trustees a great deal for advice, Betty likes to have the final say, and she likes the sense of achievement that results from it. The day-to-day running of the farm is left largely in Brian's hands. His knowledge of the property and the fact that he was able to pick up a lot of her husband's ideas and plans for the future have made him a hard man to replace.
Yeah, well, I should with a bit of luck get finished by about 10 o'clock tomorrow.
Oh, good. Well, I'll come now, if you like, and give you a hand with the super out to the paddock and the seed.
Yeah, that'll be fine, actually, save a lot of time.
The advisor comes once in 6 weeks, and we plan a program. And there's also this trustee who is very interested. He helped to sort out sheep. We don't buy in any sheep. We breed all our own replacements. Therefore, we've got to cull and be fairly particular what we're doing in that direction. See you later, Brian. When I went up to the football game in the winter, my oldest boy said, "Have you got rid of the hens yet? I'm sure a pig would be more economic." Or 2 pigs, Mum. How much are weaners at the moment? My daughter frequently brings her friends home and they dash around outside too. There are several bits and pieces down the paddock that the twins used to do last year, such as a fort they built, the tree house, the rock house. They're always very busy when they're home. In Oamaru, I endeavour to go at least once a fortnight, perhaps more often, to visit my mother and to do any shopping that arises. when I go to town, I usually have a list worked out in advance and write out the cheques for the various firms that are owing and try most times to pay them personally, because I think that if you're in touch with the firms you deal with, you're a bit more than a number on a computer card. I don't seem to mind it being on my own too much. Always try to keep myself as active as possible when I get up in the mornings. I have a fixed plan of action. Otherwise you're inclined, I think, to drift days away.
It's a rather alarming situation as far as the high country bloke's concerned. There's chain either side. It opens it up to all manner of management problems.
I first went to Federated Farmers because of the wool acquisition question, and I knew I had a boat to exercise. I felt I wanted a bit more information, and I went along to a couple of those meetings, and since then I've carried on going whenever there's a topic that applies to this situation. I don't think they mind me being there. I'm more or less an observer to learn what I can as they go along. I hope that other farmers regard me on an equal footing, because after all I think I'm trying to observe a male attitude in a female frame. It sounds rather odd, but I hope they don't think that I'm masquerading, although when you're out at a mixed evening it's very difficult because the women are inclined to congregate together and discuss the tomato recipes or the household affairs, and the men are up the far end chatting on topics that I prefer to be, and sometimes I wonder if I'm flesh or fowl. I think I go to both Federated Farmers and Bridge to see other people and to enjoy the game, to try and sharpen up my wits, which I feel are a bit dim at times and they need activating.
We should have done it. Yeah, we should. Go ahead to plan.
I enjoy games of cards very much, but bridge is rather more difficult than my normal game, which would be more likely to be 500. I haven't television because of the situation of the house. In the evenings I spin, or I read, or I knit. when the time comes for the boys to come back, I would stay on for a good while, but then eventually I'd have to look towards some other home. I look at cities and wonder if I could stand the pace. I look at other places and say, no, that's not for me, but I definitely have to move at some stage.